This podcast is sponsored by Shredlights. Shredlights make the most versatile flashlights in the world. They can easily be attached to any EUC, skateboard, bike helmet, scooter, e-bike, one wheel, and much more. These pocket-sized lights pack a ton of power in a small form factor to go where other lights can't. They are rider-owned and operated and known for industry-leading customer support with over 25,000 riders around the world who trust their products for their daily riding. So please check out this sponsor in the description below for a discount and also to support this podcast. And now on to our guest, Alessandra, who is an EUC rider in Boston, Massachusetts. So her Instagram handle is Wanderfeet. So if you guys would like to follow her and see what she's doing with her cool ride videos and her Insta360 videos of herself riding around the city, go ahead and follow her. Spelled as you'd expect, Wanderfeet, feet, Wanderfeet. So yeah, go ahead and follow her. But now, onto the podcast.
The biggest difference is that now, because it's so easy to get around, I'm going places more frequently than even though they're in the city, because like I would have to take a long walk from the train, or there was no place to dock the bike, because I used to see the bikes, like nowhere to dock the bikes. Like I wouldn't go, like there's this beach here in Boston called Carson Beach. Mm-hmm. And this summer, I've been living in Boston for going on 11 years in April. And I had been to that beach once or twice before I got my wheel. And now I got my wheel, and I was just going on weekends. I'll take my yoga mat and I would go and do yoga. I'll bring a book, and I've gone to the Arboretum. There's a really nice cemetery, past, I'd be so weird, past Cambridge.
A nice cemetery.
it's like on fall, the foliage is really pretty, blah, blah, but it's kind of it's a little hike to get there. So now I've been able to explore a lot more of the city. Don't try to hide, 'cause I'm gonna haunt you like an animal.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Evolution Podcast. And today with me, I have Alessandra from Boston, Massachusetts. Hello.
Hi. How's it going?
So she and I don't know each other like a lot of my other guests. I have known them in the past, but I came across her because I'm way too connected on Instagram and Facebook with hashtags and things like that. So I kind of watch everything that is electric unicycle related. So I think I saw one of your videos one day and I saw you riding in traffic or something like that in Boston. And I was just respect. Okay. Cause I don't see a lot of the Boston people that I know, I guess downtown in the city center. They're usually kind of, I guess, in the suburbs. They're not quite in Boston. So I was oh, this could be interesting to see, what her story is, how she got into this. And, she probably has a similar, lifestyle as I do as far as living, in a proper city.
Yeah. Did you see the video? What's the name? Because when I was riding one day on my way to work, there was this guy that kind of followed me. He stopped me and he's like, "Hey, have you been riding this for a while?" And then he did a YouTube video. I can't remember what's his name.
Ustride? That was you?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, behind the scenes, we were kind of laughing. We were dude, that was the most chauvinistic thing you could ever put in your YouTube video.
He approached me and he's well, the whole YouTube video was there. So I was that was one of my first times kind of properly riding away from the city, because I work kind of the Boston area. Okay. And that was my introduction. So from that video, a couple of people kind of saw my Instagram name from the screen.
Okay.
And they started following me on Instagram, and they're "Oh, you were in a Ustride video." I'm do you know him? I'm no. We just happened to bump into each other in the street, and I was I don't see a lot of people just riding along. So I was yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I didn't realize that was. I feel when I saw that you were just wearing a helmet, I didn't quite see who it was. Mm-hmm. Okay, well now we know it was you. Yeah. So how in the world did you get into these things? Give me the whole backstory of how did you see these unicycles? How did you decide to get into it? What's the whole thing?
Well, so to be honest, I've seen them in the streets before here in Boston. I was that's really cool. But I never really thought of it up until 2020 with the pandemic. I used to bike everywhere, and I used to take the train to work. Mm-hmm. But now, so I'm a career nanny, And now with all of these, like I couldn't really take public transportation or
Right.
like anything like that. And biking has been my mode, had been my, well, still kind of is sometimes, my mode of transportation for quite a few years. But where I was working, it's kind of like uphill for a really long time. And I tried to bike there, and I was like, this is going to be amazing to get in shape, but I'm going to
Right.
die. So I was like, okay, I need to find an alternative. So my first thought was to get a scooter. And then one of my friends one day came over to do yoga, and she was like, can you come downstairs and help me park the scooter? And I was like, why would I need to help you? I was like, yeah, I'll come
Right.
down. And then when I got downstairs, I don't look like it, but I'm pretty strong. And when we were moving that scooter, I was like, this is heavy. And I live in a 4-story walk-up. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to carry this scooter upstairs. Like, it's just going to make my life so much harder. So I was like, okay, we're calculating. I got to find something else. So I started doing research. I first saw the one wheel, and I was like, that looks fun. That could be, but it's, well, you're in New York, you get it. Like, it's just so cold and it snows, and like, it didn't seem feasible because they were not waterproof. So I was
Right.
like, okay, I want something that is waterproof, that I can get around, and then eventually doing some. Well, no, it is. I've taken my unicycle in the rain and the snow. Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
matter, rain or shine. Like, I'm out in it, on it. So, yeah. What was I saying?
Yeah, I mean, a scooter is not only heavy, depending on which one, but it's just awkward, right? Like you kind of have to hold it this weird way, so it's not really like, you know, I know that a lot of them fold down and stuff like that, but still, it's just kind of like pretty heavy.
It is really heavy. And, like, it's not, yeah, like, if you have your own house and you can just push it in, it's fine. But, like, if you live in an apartment that doesn't have an elevator, it's just, it doesn't really work that well. So
Yeah,
I got the unicycle. Pardon me?
I was gonna say I agree with you.
Yeah, no, and I got the unicycle. And I was like, I mean, how hard can it be? And boy, I was in for a treat.
Right.
Like, I remember when that arrived, like, that's kind of like always my decision-making process. I'm like, oh, I'll do it and I'll figure it out. I'll buy it and I'll figure it out, or whatever. I'll figure it out. And I got it. And I remember when I took it out of the box, I opened it, I turned it on, and I was like, okay, I'm going to hold against the wall. And I started trying to go, and I'm like, oh, my God, what have I done? I'm not going to be able to ride this thing, like, ever. It was so wobbly. I got, like, the Godway Tesla because that has a stabilizer. And I was like, I need that. My balance is not the best. And I was like, oh, this is going to take me so long.
It's a pretty portable wheel too, right? It's not too heavy.
It's 42 pounds, so no, I can carry it up and down.
Yeah.
No problem. I use it like a how do you say it? Kettlebell?
Oh yeah.
That's how I hold it. I bring it
There
up
you
and down.
Yeah, some people like baby it. They'll hold it under their arms as they take it up their walk up.
Oh my God.
It depends on like the weight distribution, but yeah, like I myself I'm on the second floor of a walk up. Not as high as you, but I can't imagine trying to bring something larger like a scooter or something like that up there.
Yeah, no, it's like a hernia waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long, like how many days or hours or weeks or however long, how did it take you to learn how to ride?
So I timed it. There was a lot of playgrounds around me here. I was going to the playground, and every time I go on weekends. I'd be there for like 4 or 5 hours a day, just holding onto the fence, little by little. And it took me 25 to 30 hours of training.
Okay.
So it took me about 3 full weekends on and off. Because I would take breaks, and like people would come, like, what are you doing? Like, what is that? And like,
right.
So it was a couple of hours. And
so like
then
3 or 4 days distilled down.
3 or
basically.
4 days, like part-time.
Yeah, that sounds about right. A lot of people, myself, I'm sure you had this exact feeling when I bought mine. My first wheel was a 14S or 14D from Kingsong, but I bought it and I was riding in my hallway out at my office, and like moment one, like after like 5 minutes, I was like, I think I wasted a lot of money. I think this is a huge mistake. You know, because a lot of things, like I skate, and I was a big skater for a long time. I've done like snowboarding and skiing, things like that. And usually like you can kind of see what I call the light at the end of the tunnel. Like the moment at which you would figure it out, like pretty early on. That, like after a few hours, I was still like, I don't see the light. I don't understand. But I think, so I put in like 2 hours a day for about 3 days, and then I had it. So,
Okay, that's good.
but it was really grueling. Like I had giant bruises on my calves.
Yeah, oh my God. Dude, the same happened to me. Like, my legs were a rainbow. They were like purple and green. And
Yeah.
like, were,
That's
like,
so
quite a little
typical.
wet.
Everyone who's new, like you just grip the wheel to know you don't even realize you are.
Yeah.
And then like after you were like, wow, my calves kind of hurt a lot. You're like, oh my gosh, they're black and blue.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
very unique experience for beginners, but it's typical. And I have a friend I'm teaching right now. He's on an 18-inch wheel. He's on a Kingsong 18L, and he's been putting in a lot less time probably than you when you started. And he's kind of putting in a hour once a week or something like that. But he's getting better and better. But he too is like, you know, he's like, oh, my legs hurt. I'm sweating. And it's like cold in New York, you know? And I'm like, yeah, that's just typical. He's like, is this just painful to ride forever? I'm like, no, if it was painful, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just part of the beginning stages.
Yes. Growing pains with the unicycle.
So once you learned, how quickly from like the moment you're like, okay, I got this, I can ride, did you integrate it into your life as a mode of transportation?
So, way too fast. Pretty
Okay.
much I could balance, and I'm like, I'm out, I'm going. So I started by the bike lanes around my apartment, and I was like, oh, this is fine. I can go on the
Right.
street. And I think it was like the second time I was riding, I decided to go, like, do a loop around downtown. And there's this street in downtown area called Store Drive that is kind of like a highway, but it goes through the city. And I was going through there, and, like, I didn't know, and I got nervous. Cars started, like, honking, and I fell. And I was like, oh, my God, no, what am I doing? So I got out of the street, I just pulled the wheel, and I'm like, okay, no, let's go back to the bike lane. So, like, yeah, I feel like as soon as I could balance, I kind of, like, started going. And then I would just, like, when the streets were too crowded, I would, like, get out of the street and get in the sidewalk very slow, and then
Right.
do that, like, tango. But, like, yeah, I wasn't, like, here in the town.
See, we could be
Like,
friends. I like that. You are just head first, which is great. Because I've been meeting a lot of people who are somewhat newer to riding, and they were like, oh, I learned. And then after that, it took me months to want to, like, venture into a bike lane, let alone, like, a street or anything like that. So, you know, like I said, respect to you for that. That's impressive for any human. You know what I mean? Like my friend, he's still like, I can't go on the sidewalk. I'm just gonna stay in the park. So yeah.
Like, no, yeah, I'm a little daredevil. My mom doesn't love it. Yeah.
And so, what is it like? So where you work, is it an elevator building, or is it also a walk up?
No, I just leave it outside. It's a safe area. They're not like anybody that doesn't live there. It's not really people working around.
You
I just
live
leave it outside. When
like-
I'm at work. At work.
Yeah, so
Not at
properly
home.
outside, like chained up or what?
I mean, again, because of my job field, I cannot really disclose much information.
Sure.
But like where I work, like it's safe, so I just leave it outside, and like
Okay.
there's no way anybody.
You don't have to answer, but I'm assuming there's like an inner courtyard or something that you feel comfortable. Like, I don't know. That's just
There's,
crazy
like,
to me.
A yard in front. Okay, it's kind of like no, it's I cannot.
So they're like, are they in a house or an apartment?
In a house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm imagining like an apartment just randomly in the middle of the city.
No. No, and like I wouldn't. I feel like Boston is pretty safe. There is a lot of like honors code. Like people don't really. That's been my experience. Like I don't feel like people really steal a lot here. But like yeah, the farther away you get, I feel like the less you have to worry about that.
Right.
So like in my apartment, yeah, I would never leave it outside. But over there, yeah, no, it's fine.
It's interesting. That is not my. That's where we part ways. That is not my experience. I would never, ever, ever leave my unicycle away from my side here in the city. But that's sort of the benefit. Like, I'm sure you experience this in other ways, but like, you know, I always paint a picture for people. You know, in the morning, I will commute to work, go to the office, I bring it into my office and just put it down, near the front door or at my desk or whatever. And then after work, I can ride out and grab a drink with a friend or something, and then ride back home.
Yeah.
Each of those moments, I'm bringing it with me. Like if I go to like a restaurant or a bar or something like that, I can put it under the table or right there under me at the bar. So it's kind of amazing for that aspect. Like unlike a bike or a scooter where like it would be weird to kind of bring it inside somewhere. Like you can bring it everywhere with you and it's not a big deal.
Yes, like it doesn't take that much space. And like the other reason why I feel comfortable kind of like leaving it outside is because most of the people are like, what is that? And even if they wanted to steal it, like I feel like they wouldn't know how to turn it on. And it's so heavy. They'll be like, yeah, no, this is way too big of a hassle. It's probably not even worth that much money.
Right. Well, I would be careful. I feel like we are seeing, I can't speak for Boston, but in other cities around the world and also in America, people are starting to figure out what these things are and how much they're worth. And they're figuring out how much the like used worth is. That's the scary part, right? Because they could look up online and figure out that it's like $2,000 or $2,500 or $1,500 or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't understand. We've seen people like on Facebook Marketplace try to resell a fairly new, like, MSX or something for like $500, which is like, I mean, it's clearly stolen. We know it is because if it was someone in the industry, in the community, they would know to sell it for higher. But people are starting to figure it out now. So just be careful.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I mean, one thing I've been playing with is, I mean, this is just a thought. I have not done any research, so I don't know if this would even fly. But I've thought about getting like a little GPS to put it on it. Just in case, like, it ever go missing, be like, okay, I can log in my phone, like, okay, where are you?
Yeah, well, my initial thought on that is, good idea. However, what happens if, like, okay, you found it, you're tracking it. You don't know who that person is who took it. You know what I mean? Like, who you taking with you? The police?
The police, obviously.
Hopefully.
Yes. No, I wouldn't go like, hey, where's my whale? No.
Yeah.
God, no. Guns are legal in this country.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely like, I know some people have considered here in the city, like, basically getting like a bike lock situation and potentially locking it up to, like a bike, like even like a bike docking station or like a street lamp or something like that. But for New York, it's still kind of strange, like, to do it. Cause I'm like, even if someone doesn't know what it is, right, and they see it on the street, they could just like kick it, step on it, mess with it. If they just did, they want to just break someone's property.
Yeah, no, like I get that. Like I wouldn't really feel comfortable leaving it outside, especially like you're saying, you can really bring it anywhere and just put it against something. And like, there's really no need to leave it sitting outside. And again, I only do that at work because I know how safe it is. Like I know it's never going to get stolen.
Right.
So,
right.
But besides
so
that,
if it's rainy, is where you leave it outside undercover?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Cool.
But like, the little thing where you charge it, like that's always closed. So I feel like, I've taken the wheel in the rain and snow and.
Well, there's been a lot of, I mean, it's not been like necessarily like rain or water related, but there's been a lot of fires lately in the EV news.
So what kind of brand is getting those?
It's been mainly Gotway. But it's generally been because these are some of the newer wheels that they've just released.
Okay.
My last podcast I did with Adam, he's Wrong Way on YouTube. You can listen to that. It's like we talk all about all the fires kind of in the news. Okay. But it it's kind of like always a potential for any wheel, whether it's a Tesla or I ride the Veteran Sherman every day. There's always a potential. You should, I think you're doing everything right. You should just be cautious about getting it rained down or wet. So even like a Tesla, my friend had one. Do you have the V2 or the V1? Do you know?
No.
Generally, I think the Tesla V2 has like the word Tesla written on the side of it.
Then I have the V1 because mine doesn't say Tesla anywhere.
Yeah. So my friend had a V1 back when they first came out with that wheel, and he recalls he rode a lot in the rain here in New York, and he recalls like water would get in through the button, that you turn the wheel on with. So he just put tape, like clear packing tape, over the front of that so that when he's riding in the rain, the water's pelting the front of that. It can't seep in there. So,
That's good advice.
because to be fair, to be brutally honest, these literally are not actually waterproof. If someone told you that they were completely waterproof, they were lying to you. There's a bit of waterproofing in some wheels that goes into it, but it is by no means like
Oh my God.
utterly safe.
Oh dear, like every time it rains, like it's Monday through Friday, it rains too, and I still go to work on it. So I guess that's very good to know. I'll do that when we're done. I'll tape it just in case because
Yeah. And I have, not promoting myself here, but I did a video a while back about how you can ride in the rain safely on my YouTube channel. And it's like, the basics are like, after you ride in the rain, when you get to your destination, take a towel or something and wipe down the outside of your wheel so it's completely dry, and then
Okay.
leave it upright, because the way the control board and everything works, where it's positioned inside of the wheel, because basically what you don't want to happen is water to hit your control board and short out.
okay.
The best case scenario, if that happens, if it shorts out, your wheel's dead. All you need to do is get a new control board, and then it's back to life again. The
Yeah.
worst case is it shorts and somehow it hits the battery and then fire. So
my
that's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, in the older wheels, I don't know that we've ever saw that. From, like, I've had my friend, his shorted out. The wheel just died basically. So we just got a new control board from his dealer, and then he just installed it himself. Or certain dealers, wherever you bought it from, they can do it for you.
Yeah.
And then the wheel's back to life again.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's something I do want to get into at some point soon, is learning how to open these and fix them myself, because
Yeah.
it's just like the only guy I ride in town. He kind of like repairs them, but like it's such a niche thing, and like I feel like it's,
Who
the more
who's that
you
guy?
can do. Paul.
Paul. I don't know that I know of Paul.
Yeah,
What does
he
he
rides
ride?
with the. He's tall. He has blue eyes.
No, what wheel does he ride? Does he ride?
Yes, he has a Godway. He has 3 wheels. I think they're all
Okay.
Godways. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
And he was the one that hooked me up. Like the first time my pedal broke, like I met him literally the day before and the day after we met. Like my pedal broke, I was like, dude, I don't know how to fix it. Like, can you help me out? So like that's one of the things I want to do this year. Like I want to be able to learn how to open these and try to fix them myself, because it's just
Yeah, you know what? It's something you can completely do, and always it feels like you level up a little bit, afterwards. You're like, oh, I have a new skill set now because I can fix certain things. So, I mean, the basics are like when you do open the wheel up, once you figure out how to take apart your shell, the Tesla, it's a little bit, I think you have to take like the center piece off, and then you can take the panels off, something like that. It's probably similar to my MCM5. But once you get in, always the first thing is you have to disconnect the battery. And then after that, press the power button on the wheel to dispel any excess power that was surging through it. And then you can start doing what you got to do to replace the control board or whatever you got to do. But
any
But
good YouTube channel you can recommend me?
yeah, so there's Marty Back. His last name is spelled Backe. He does a lot of really good in-depth teardown stuff. Also, the guy I had on the last podcast, Wrong Way, is his YouTube channel. He does some good teardowns. Actually, it's not like his last video is not a how-to, but he did a teardown of the Tesla V2. So he takes it apart and kind of shows you what the inside looks like. It was just him trying to see what the quality was like. So that one's not a complete like how to, I don't know, swap the control board or something like that. But yeah, so Marty has a really good technical channel, Wrong Way. I'm sure there's some other people that have made some good stuff. On certain wheels, I have done like a how-to of like how to change a tire. But oftentimes a lot of like getting to the tire is similar, but not exactly the same on a lot of different wheels, right? So if you were to watch any stuff that I've done, it would be very specific to that wheel that I had at the time.
Okay, so you say you ride King songs mostly?
No, so my main wheel is the Veteran Sherman.
Okay.
Before that, I was riding the Gotway Nikola 100 volt.
How fast does that one go?
I've tapped 41 on it. It can probably
Okay.
do 42. It depends on your weight, really.
Okay.
But that's like, we're talking with that wheel, like when I tap 40, I'm not sustaining it. I'm not holding at 40. Like it's me just going, I did 40. You know, like
Yeah.
that wheel can like hold like 35 to 38 pretty well if you're like
Okay.
going that fast. But again, you just have to listen for the beeps and, you know, do you use an Android or an iPhone?
iPhone.
Okay, so you can get the app if you don't already, Darkness Bot, if you haven't heard of that, and you can set the beeps to like, I have a Bluetooth speaker I keep right here. Actually did a video on this if you were curious how to set it all up. But basically I set it to where I figured out from other people what's the safest top speed I could go on my wheel,
Okay.
whatever wheel I'm riding at the time. And I set that as an alarm in Darkness Bot. That
Okay.
way, if I don't hear the actual beeps from the Gotway wheel, it'll go off and I hear it right here next to my ear. That way I don't faceplant, you know?
That's
So-
like my biggest nightmare when it comes to these things. I've
Yeah.
watched so many videos of cutouts, and I'm like, oh my god, I hope that never happens to me.
Well, you got a full face, right? So you're already a step ahead.
Oh yeah, helmet. Yeah, I had to. Like, I'm so clumsy. I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I don't wanna play
So
with
what's
it.
your gear setup? What do you ride with when you're going out for a ride? Like what protective gear?
So if I'm like around the neighborhood because I need to buy something, like I'll put like my wrist. How do you say it? My
Like wrist guards?
My wrist guards. I do the knee pads, and I have like boots, the ankle boots.
Okay.
But if I'm leaving my neighborhood, like around here, like the streets are so small, like nothing is gonna happen. But if I'm leaving the neighborhood, then I have the helmet, and then the same. On summer, I use the elbow pads too. But like now in winter, like my winter jacket is so puffy that at first, like it doesn't really fit, and like I don't really need it. Like I've fallen, I still fall all the time. But I've taken a few falls that like nothing really happens if you have the
Gotcha.
winter jacket on. So, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, the helmet, especially like one of the streets that I take, it's a lot of traffic, like a lot of traffic. It feels like, again, another like little highway in the city. Cars are just going super fast. And I don't know why, but like cars really don't like sharing the road. And like a lot of the times I'm zooming through them because I'm like, you have to be stuck in traffic. I don't. I'm trying to get out of this street ASAP, not because I want to prove that I'm faster than you. It's because I don't feel safe in this street, so just let me go. And like a lot of the times cars like will start honking or they yell at me. I'm like, dude, I am not trying to outrun you. I'm just trying to get out of these ASAP. So just chill. And yeah, so in those, like every time I'm leaving and I'm taking a road like that, like I always have my helmet on because I'm like always afraid that there's going to be someone that is going to have a bad day. I saw a video on one of the guys from New York City this week or last week. They were like in a group ride and this white van kind of like took a
Yes.
turn, and like I was like, oh my god, no, that is horrible. Why would you do that to someone on a wheel?
So this is an interesting topic because we can all probably agree that New York is a very like specific and unique place when it comes to riding these things because like, so I don't know what the speed limit is where you are, but the speed limit for cars in Manhattan is only 25 miles an hour. So all of us, like my current everyday wheel can go 53. So at any point in time, I can get away from any car. It's like a safety thing, right? So that
Yeah.
speed thing and the stability of the wheel that I ride, it's a huge safety measure. At any point, I'm like, you know what? I'm out of here. Choom.
Yes.
But we ride like probably one of the craziest cities in the world. We lane split in traffic up 6th Avenue, going nuts in big groups, and it's probably frustrating for cars. But
Yeah.
you know, I'm always thinking in the back of my head, like, I can be crazy and ride, but I need to be aware of other cars because you never know, like, if someone has road rage,
Yeah.
I'm right there and they could just do
Yeah.
whatever they want. And so like that what you saw was probably on Instagram from
Yeah.
David Jansen posted that. Sort of the backstory there was like, yeah, I guess they were riding. and the guys didn't like it or whatever. So when they all hit the red light and stopped, because they were at I think they're at Houston Street, which is a kind of a big, like 6-way street there. So a lot of the guys don't stop for red lights, but they did. And that's when the guy just went nuts. And I think they probably just, were being guys and they yelled back at him like, screw you or whatever. Yeah. And that's when he decided to use his car to try to mow him down. So that's the thing that I'm always like, if I'm going to be a tough guy and yell at a car like, screw you, whatever, flip him the bird or something, I'm going to make sure that I'm not stopped at a red light. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to just cut away or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of the backstory behind that crazy video.
That's insane. Like that's another like of my worst nightmares. Like have a car do something like that. Like you're helpless. Like
true.
They hit you and like it's just.
I think that was a little provoked. I think that one was a little provoked. I'm not saying that the car was justified, but heck no. I'm just saying that I don't think they were just casually riding, but keeping to themselves. I think they were being a little aggressive.
The reason why I emphasize with that is because, again, I ride alone and I'm usually just trying to get somewhere. And I get that. Like, I get cars get really mad at me and I'm like, I'm like, sometimes I feel like I should just take my helmet off and be like, see, I'm not a guy. I'm not trying to prove anything to you. I'm just a girl trying to go somewhere.
Right.
So, no. It's wild in the streets.
Yeah, but you know what? Like I said, like not a lot of people in New York. It's a big bubble of people who are kind of fearless and will ride in the street. So it's really cool to see other people in other cities like understand that sometimes this is probably true for you, but very much for us. Sometimes the bike lane is the most unsafe place. Our bike lanes are kind of built as an afterthought. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times pedestrians just step out and just stand in the bike lane, and you're like, dude.
It's the worst. And then they stand on their phone and they're just there. I'm like, or like when they just, which happens here a lot, if I'm riding in the bike lane, especially the ones that are like separated from the street, like people are especially comfortable in those. The ones that are like close to the sidewalk. Like I try to go as slow as I can because it happens so often that a guy or a girl is just on their phone and they're just mindlessly walking and they just like walk in the bike lane and I'm like, dude, at least look before you go because I'm in a wheel, but I'm not the only one. Like in Boston, people bike and skate and they go everywhere. Like it's one of those cities where you can just get around using other forms of transportation. I'm like, it's not just me. There are bikers here that go faster than I go on like a good bike and like they kick my butt. So I'm like, okay, watch for yourself. But like, that's a whole other conversation. Like people walking in the bike lane.
Do you think in the future, well, first off, let me ask, how many months have you been riding?
So I got my wheel in August, and I started practicing around September. August, September. Okay. So I've been riding for like 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
I like speed in general. Like back when I used to drive, like it's just a family thing. My mom is the same. Like we were all like crazy when it came to like speed. So in the wheel, with the little thing, I saw that I was doing 34 miles per hour, kind of like on average. The wheel, like they said, like the speed is 30 miles. But the wheel wasn't beeping at 34. I've had a few scares where like this happened to me once. I was in the street. And like when the streets kind of like, it happens here. Like they have like, it's not a hole, but like the stream that kind of like sinks.
Yeah. It's
in
like
a very smooth way.
A little dip, but you can't really see it.
Yes. So that happened to me once in this really busy street where I was going super fast and I didn't see that. And the wheel went down and I went up and I was just floating for like a second. I was like, I'm about to break everything.
Oh, no.
And somehow I landed in the wheel and I was shutting my face up. So I feel like since then, and that was around the same time I was doing the 34 miles, like I slowed down a lot because I've gotten a few scares and I'm like, this can potentially be very dangerous if I keep going this way. So I'm like, no, I have taken it down a notch.
So do you think you'll upgrade? Well, I was going to ask you, do you think you'll upgrade to a faster wheel? It sounds like you might need to.
I do want to, I just got this one a couple of months ago, so I mean, I also like the idea of having a few because, and I get it from these guys. I was like, I like having a few because then when my friends come, we can all go on rides together and they don't need to buy one. And like, if they don't want
Right.
to, blah, blah. So I'm like, I do like the idea of buying another one. I was looking into the Emotion just because they're lighter,
Okay.
weight-wise, it seems like. But at the
I would
same
recommend
time,
you get like an MSP.
that is Kingston,
That's Gotway.
Galway.
Yeah.
How fast does that one go?
Well, the MSP, well, that or an RS, but the RS is still having some issues right now. But you could probably tap 40 on the MSP.
Okay.
On the high speed version. They make two versions. There's a high speed and a high torque. I think
Okay.
you probably don't really need the high torque one. And yeah, the high speed, I'm pretty sure you can tap 40.
Okay.
So when
All
you're
right.
hitting 34, 35, you're completely fine.
All right, perfect. You know how
And
much
that
one
wheel
goes
is
for?
more well balanced. It's like, it's the way it's situated. You've probably seen it before, but it's just I think that's what used to ride a lot. I don't know what he's riding these days, but maybe the day he saw you, he was probably on it. But yeah, that wheel is going to be a lot more stable because it weighs a little bit more, right? I think it's probably
Okay.
like 55 pounds or something like that. But
Oh no,
what I like to say is, there you go. What I like to say is weight equals safety. And I'm talking about the weight of the wheel. So
Okay.
the heavier the wheel is, generally speaking, and like if you have an 18-inch, so you're currently riding a 16-inch diameter tire.
Okay.
The MSP or the RS, which are all basically in the family of the original MSX that came out. But anyways, they're all 18 by 3. So you're on a 16 by like 2.5 maybe or something like that.
Okay.
So the wider tire, so it's slightly wider, width-wise, and then like the bigger diameter is going to be safer for you when you hit unexpected bumps. It's going to be a lot more stable. And
Okay.
and then the weight itself too is going to keep you grounded. So when you basically hit that like, asphalt drift or whatever you want to call it, you got launched a little bit, right? But thankfully you landed back down on the wheel. It's less likely to happen on a heavier wheel. You're not going to get
Okay.
launched. The Tesla we used to laugh about back in the day was like, it was fantastic at the time, but once you got to become a speed demon, you could get launched off of it because it weighs very little.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. I'll
Yes.
keep that in mind. MSP? You said?
So,
Okay.
so that one is a bit like, it's, this tech is very fast moving. So the MSP is a fantastic wheel that might even be hard to find now because technically it's off the market, but a lot of dealers still have it in stock. So you might have to hunt for that a little bit. I'm not sure who still has it in stock, but the successor after the MSP is the RS. They're very, very similar, but the RS has a different motor situation. It's a hollow bore motor. So currently your wheel, my wheel, it has an axle in it. So there's just like a small, hole around the axle. There's a little bearing there, and then there's the motor. So the hollow bore stuff, it's a massive hole with a massive bearing. And so there's just a giant hole in the middle. So there's like basically the benefits that we thought originally with this was like thicker wires can come down through. So that's safer when you're just pushing it and drawing more power. The pedal hangers actually attach inside of that hole as opposed to an axle. Anyways, this is all like the big differences between the MSP and the RS. And it's got some fancier lights. But yeah, the MSP is like a rock solid wheel. And I talked to some friends who like they regret selling theirs to buy an RS because they were just like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look into that. Where did you buy your wheel from? You buy it from a dealer?
Yeah, I got it from Ewell.
Okay. Yeah. So Jason might have some MSP in stock. I'm not sure when you're ready to upgrade. Might not be today, but yeah, email him and he'll steer you in the right direction. He might be able to get some too if he was out of stock or something like that. But
If I out of stock, what do you mean?
well, I mean,
Oh, if he's out of stock, I'm like,
Yeah,
so
he
you
might
were
be
telling me
able-
to stock him. I'm like, what do you mean?
no. If he's out of stock of the wheel.
Okay. All right, sounds good. All right. Do you know roughly how much they go for?
I think they were new, like probably like 22.
Okay.
But you also probably could find someone locally. It wouldn't come with like the eWheels warranty necessarily, but you might be able to find someone locally who has a mildly used one you could buy, and then it would be even cheaper.
All right. Okay. I'll look at Facebook Marketplace. But
It's
like, yeah.
well, not even that. I would actually, if you don't know of it, I would go on the Electric Unicycle forum. So we have a whole website, and there's a thread there for sales.
Okay.
And I've directed a lot of people to that, and they've bought used wheels there and had a great experience.
All right.
Obviously, like anything, vet as best you can who you're buying from. But
Yeah, I feel like with these things, it's just better to buy them new. Like, you just don't know.
yeah. I would talk to Jason.
Because even if you get it secondhand, it's still going to be expensive. So might as well just pay a little bit more so you get that kind of like security, everything.
I hear you. I get all my wheels from Jason. So I don't think I've ever bought a used wheel personally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit tricky. Like if like in me, like I don't really know anything about it. So like if you cannot really do the proper like check, like no.
Yeah. Oh, I know way too much about it. That's my problem.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm
Hopefully
too tied
that'll
in.
be me in a near future.
I tell people if they have any questions, I have a little bit of a platform online in this community. So like if you have any questions, my Instagram is an open line of communication for anyone, whether it's you or somebody else. Like I'm happy to answer questions there from people, and they can get a pretty rapid response from me if I'm in a good mood or whatever.
All right, no, I'll hit you up if I ever have any questions.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, and there's quite a few people in your neck of the woods who can also help you out as well. So like if you don't know Erwin, he's got a like live stream show that he does like generally like every Wednesday. His channel is called like The Black Cobra or something.
Oh my God, I bumped into him on the street one day. Like I was riding around the city. That was right after, well, obviously a bit after the youth strike situation. And I was riding with a friend. Well, my friend was back in the bike. He was recording and I was in the wheel. And then like he was riding by me, and then we kind of like exchanged information and we talked a little bit. And he gave me his business card, and I remember it said like Black Cobra and like green letters. So I was like,
he's probably like the nicest guy in your neck of the woods. He's probably the best person to reach out to if you want to hang out with people, do a group ride or whatever. You got questions about, because he also knows a lot of other people too, right? So it's not just him. Like I would say he's sort of like the linchpin to a lot of people in your area. I think he's got an Instagram too, so you could probably hit him up there. But
I think when he gave me his card, I think I started following him. So
okay.
I'm not sure, but I think we follow each other on social media.
Gotcha.
Either way, I have his card somewhere in my apartment, so that's good to know.
Yeah. So outside of unicycles, what are some other do you do other like high adrenaline hobbies or of any sort, like skiing or snowboarding or?
Okay, so no, I never really did winter sports because most of my friends who practice, including one of my dearest friends, she's been snowboarding her whole life. And a couple of years ago, she had a really bad accident, and she broke both of her knees. And she was in bed rest for like 6 months. And when I'm saying she's been snowboarding her whole life, it's like, so like I've always been kind of like afraid of the subject just because I know so many people that have broken things, and like I don't want to break anything. But this year with the unicycle and now my balance being a little bit better, that's one thing I want to get into this winter, like snowboarding, not skiing, but like snowboarding. But I mean, like sports that I practice regularly, no, but I do like adrenaline. I'm adrenaline prone. I don't know how to say it. So I've done bungee jumping once. I've done skydiving. I've done flyboarding. I've done scuba diving. So anything that would get me kind of like my blood rushing is something that I will probably try to do. I'm actually right now talking to a girl from New York City. Her name is Anna. I think she's Colombian or Venezuelan. She also writes. We met on social media. And I told her, I was like, I've been hustling people down to go skydiving again, but none of my friends want to. And she was like, I'm down. So we're talking about, I don't know her in person, but I was like, okay, let's do something. I'll come to New York City and we'll go skydiving together. So I hope that still happens.
Cool.
But I like to jump out of places.
I'm probably a chicken in that respect. I don't think I will ever go skydiving. That's like
skydiving is easier than bungee jumping. A lot easier. Because in skydiving, you usually do tandem. So you do it with someone like behind you, and like they ask you right when they open the door of the plane, like, okay, you're ready, and you say yes, and then you jump.
So like when I pee my pants, I'm gonna pee on my instructor.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the view is something out of this world. So
Yeah, I can imagine. I just think I'm too much of a chicken in that. Like I love roller coasters and driving fast in cars and all kinds of stuff, but that is the one thing for me personally where I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'll skip it. Thank you.
yeah, like most of my people don't get it. My family is like, I don't know where you came from because no one in my family is
Yeah.
like this. But it's the adrenaline, something else.
You got to
But,
teach
like,
your family how to ride.
I mean, I don't think my mom would. Like, she likes speeding and driving and like driving really fast, but I don't. She's very cautious overall. So I don't think she would ever. She would ever be comfortable riding the wheel. But
Yeah.
one can only dream.
When the pandemic hit, I went down to my parents' house in Florida, and while I was down there, I basically taught my dad to ride, kind of. If he owns one, he would probably keep it up and ride around his neighborhood, but he doesn't
Yeah.
own one, so he just was riding the stuff I had. My sister, kind of, she's freaked out by it 'cause she's got like hip problems and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
But I taught my wife, and so she like, it was weird because I never really like asked her like, do you like, I never pressured her to learn to come ride with me or whatever. But one day she was just like, I want you to teach me how to ride. And I was like,
Yes.
okay. So over the course of like a few days, I taught her. So she's up and riding.
Nice.
Although now that we're back in so down in Florida, she was down. Like in the evening, we just take a little like date and go ride, around the neighborhood, my parents' neighborhood. But now that we're back in the city, she's like freaked out by the bike lane and traffic, like it scares her.
Yeah. Rightfully so. I mean, again, drivers, they can be pretty crazy, and they don't care. Like, if they want to intimidate you, they have the upper hand. So
Right.
I understand that. Like, it's a
Right.
lot. And New York City has even more traffic than Boston. So I can imagine it can be even more overwhelming over there than it is here.
The craziest part about the traffic here, I don't know what it is for you guys like downtown, but like, if you get stuck, on a regular day in the afternoon in traffic, trying to get like from one side of Manhattan to the other, not top to bottom, but left to right or right to left, it's only like three miles. Could take you 4 hours.
In a car.
In a car. Yeah.
Yes. Because,
Which is
Well,
why this is like an ultimate hack, right? Because you're just like, forget you. Like literally you can ride in the bike lane or the sidewalk or the street or whatever you need to just to get there as quick as possible.
Yes. And I feel like that's what makes drivers so mad, that like they're stuck in traffic,
They're
and
just
we are
jealous.
not. Yes. Like, well, you can do it too. No, I mean, over here, it's just, like, traffic is really bad. Like, we have these memes that is like, Boston is an hour away from Boston because it doesn't matter where you're going, what you're using. If you're driving, you might get there faster, but by the time you find a parking spot, it's gone. It's like it's the same time that taking the train. And taking the train, it takes like forever wherever you go here because the train is so slow. So it's like, yeah, it's the same. Like, traffic here is just horrendous. And
Gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah, that's how it goes in cities, I guess.
yeah. Comes with
So-
the territory.
You now that you're riding pretty much like all the time now, so you kind of said like it kind of changed your life. Like in what ways do you think it's given you a lot of value to your life?
I mean, I would say the biggest difference is that now, because it's so easy to get around, I'm going places more frequently that even though they're in the city, because like I would have to take a long walk from the train, or there was no place to dock the bike, because I used to see the bikes, like nowhere to dock the bikes. Like I wouldn't go. Like there's this beach here in Boston called Carson Beach. And this summer, I've been living in Boston for going on 11 years in April. And I had been to that beach once or twice before I got my wheel. And now I got my wheel, and I was just going on weekends. I'll take my yoga mat, and I would go and do yoga. I'll bring a book, and I've gone to the Arboretum. There's a really nice cemetery, past, this sounds weird, past
A
Cambridge.
nice cemetery.
It's like on fall, like the foliage is really pretty, blah, blah, but it's kind of like, it's a little hike to get there. So now I've been able to explore a lot more of the city. with the wheel, which I couldn't do before because it was just not convenient, and I'm a creature of convenience. So I wouldn't do it.
Right.
So now I've gotten to see a lot more. And in Boston, it makes a lot of sense because it's a very green city. Like, Boston has a lot of parks everywhere. So you can go to so many different places that are still in the area that if you didn't have a car, like I didn't go otherwise because it was just like, we were so expensive. I was like, yeah, no, that's too far. I don't really care that much. So now
Right.
I've been able to explore a lot more than I did before. I also got to know the city a lot better because with the bike, like I would bike around here, but I wouldn't really venture out because the city bikes, I don't know if it's the same in New York, they're super heavy. So like
Yeah,
you don't
same.
really want to go on like a 3-hour bike ride in those bikes. It's just not fun. So yeah, I feel like I'm doing like internal tourism, which is great for COVID times since we cannot travel. I cannot travel. So yeah, and yeah, I find myself out. Like with my job, I'm always out and about.
Okay.
But like on my free time, I'll come home or like I don't know. I was a lot more home based when I was free before I got the wheel. Now with the wheel, I find myself just I'll take any excuse and I'll just be out.
That's
I'm
what I like to hear.
Well, the sun is out. I'm out. Kind of like
Exactly.
situation.
And you'll
So
ride in the rain too. So, I mean, not that
And
you
the
do that
rain and the
for
snow
leisure,
and
but
like it's just like yeah, I find myself just like roaming around just because with good music and just going places that I wouldn't go otherwise and
right.
taking it a bit farther and farther. Like this summer, I don't know if I'm gonna do it, but I'd like to take the wheel to the Cape. Because this guy, man, like he told me that he's done it. He's like, I just make a stop in Plymouth, charge, and then he goes all the way to the Cape in the wheel. So I
Wow.
was like, that sounds fun because I love the Cape, but I don't go often enough because it's the same. It's like
You might need a
the
bigger
ferry.
wheel, the bigger battery though.
I mean, yeah, that would probably be like a summer thing. So maybe by then I'll be ready to buy another one.
Yeah. So what music are you listening to when you're riding around? What's your go-to?
See, I like all music, so I don't discriminate. I go from Chopin to Pink Floyd or Slipknot in the same day. Like it really depends how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So, but I have a couple of playlists. I would say I listen. My go-to is like I have this playlist where I have like House of the Rising Sun, and I have like some Stevie Nicks. I have some Pink Floyd. I have some Beatles.
Right.
That's kind of like one that I can keep going back to. I have another one that I started creating. I make a lot of playlists. My Spotify is full of playlists.
Yep.
There is one with the songs that I've been using for the videos because usually the songs that I use for my videos are songs that I actually really like.
Right.
So whenever I edit something, I just put it on that folder, and that one is called like new faves, like new favorite music. So
Yeah.
I keep building like little playlists like that.
And
So
you
I
have a
have a
360
go-to.
camera, right? So you're shooting yourself riding with that?
Yeah, so that was a whole other story. When I was like, when I got the wheel, I'm like, it would be so cool if I could record while I'm riding. And I originally wanted to get a drone, but the problem with the drone is kind of like, I'm like, well, I'm clumsy. That's why you see me squinting. I don't see that well, and I don't have I have 3 in each eye, and I don't wear contacts or glasses, so I'm a hazard to myself. So I was like, I don't think I should be like handling a drone while I'm riding if I already have kind of like trouble with my eyesight. So that's how I found the camera, and like the camera has also been such a blast because you get to record, and like in the app, there's so many little things that you couldn't do. Like I use like regular video editing apps before, where with this one, like you can really play with the angles, and there's just so much room to just go crazy. That like just the unicycle and the camera combined, like can keep me entertained for like a whole week without seeing anybody because there's just so much that you can do.
So which 360 camera do you use?
I have the 361R.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
So-
Yeah, I just did a video for those guys, and so they sent me a bunch of them. But I used to use the 1X. That was the one I
Okay.
used.
That's the long one?
Yeah. And then so they wanted me to do a video review for them of their latest camera. So they sent me a 1R, so I've used that now.
So lucky.
And then also their X2, so it's like the upgrade from the X that I used to use.
Okay.
So I've used both of those. I find that for unicycle riding, I like the X2 better. It's like a little bit lighter. But the 1R is cool. You know, like I actually, so they sent me like the 360 lens, and it's like the 1-inch edition, so it functions like a GoPro or whatever. It's like a massive like lens on it. So I've played with both of those, and it's pretty good quality. Like, but yeah, the 360 thing is wild. Like just all the stuff that you can do in post. Like you get to be the director after the fact. You just kind of point it forward or backwards or whatever, and then like forget about it.
Yeah, and like they're just like for the video I did of Copycat at some like I knew what song I wanted to use, so at some point when I was gonna switch the angle, I was like, I'm just gonna hit the wheel. Just to see what I can do with that later. And that's something I've gotten a lot of comments on. People will DM me like, I like how you did like the whole thing where like the camera and I was just like you do little things with the camera and it can take you so far away and it's just like one little movement. So it's just
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan.
That's
I'm
great.
a huge fan of the Insta360. It's just the Insta360 and the wheel are the two best purchases I've made as an adult, I have to say.
I support that. That's exciting. I feel the same way. I think you know, I do a lot of video with my DSLR and stuff like that, but the 360 is so nice, just so easy. You know, you just point it and go.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you were going to the beach, do a little bit of yoga. So you do a lot of yoga. I was looking at your Instagram. You're really big into yoga. Do you tell me about that? But do you think that has made your riding experience better or worse or?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, because again, as I was saying, like, well, I guess it goes a bit with eyesight. Like, I'm not the most coordinated person. And I started doing yoga on October 2019. I never did yoga before. And I started self-teaching. And my whole thing was like, I want to be able to do this thing. It's something I've always wanted to do. It's like, I'm going to be 30 years old. It's now or never. So I started doing yoga. I got to the split, and I really got into it.
Right.
And the leg balance was something that it's still very challenging for me to do the leg balance position.
Yeah.
But like eventually, like by the time I got the unicycle, I had been doing yoga for 9 months, 11 months or something like that. So like I do feel like even though it did take me, it feels like from reading in the forums, a bit longer than it takes people to get acclimatized to how it goes.
I think you're about average.
No, like when I was reading the reviews, there was a 50-year-old guy. He was like, "Oh, in 2 hours I did it." I'm like, "Well, good for you."
You put in a few more hours than I did, but basically over, like we said, distilled down to like 3 or 4 days. Like that's, I would say, about the average of most people.
Yeah, but again, this is after doing yoga. That's what I was gonna go with.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like if I had not had yoga for so many months before that, it would have taken me the dog
longer,
a lot longer. Because, like, my balance was just so terrible. Like, I'm super clumsy.
Gotcha. My sister always says that. She's always like, I have bad balance. I can't do this. I'm like, no, you could do it. I mean, it's just muscle memory. You know, like once you figure it out, then it's like, you're not trying all that hard. It's like a car, right? Like you learn to like make it small adjustments before it's too late, you know? So that's, and the wheel kind of, once you figure it out, it drives itself like a bicycle, right? It just wants to go forward.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you do a lot of yoga. Do you just do it by yourself or like pre-pandemic? Were you going to classes? Were you teaching it all?
No, well, now I'm working on my yoga teacher training.
Cool.
Well, I should be. I'm not doing that much homework, but I that's something that is like a pressing matter that I have to get on right now. But like that was the goal pre-pandemic. Like I was supposed to retire my nanny gloves in 2020. I had my yoga retreat booked in India, everything booked for May. Like I was gonna come back a yoga teacher, and then the pandemic happened. So, but like I do. I'm an only child, so for me, kind of like doing things on my own, it's what comes more natural. Like I learn the best when I learn on my own. I don't learn that good when people are explaining me things. I don't know if that makes any sense. So when I started doing yoga, like I was just at home, and then I would go to like a class once every 2 weeks so they could correct me, because in yoga it's very important that they tell you like, okay, no, you're doing this.
Technique is
this
correct.
way. Yeah. So I used to go to classes so I could get corrected, but like no, it's also self-teaching.
Gotcha.
It's fun because it's one of those, like for pandemic, it's great. Like it's one of the things that I just go upstairs, throw my yoga mats in the roof, and I just like do yoga for like hours at a time in summer.
We see
So
a lot
it's
of that
like,
in New York. People doing yoga on the roof.
yeah, I mean it's the best. Nobody's really looking. Well, I have a lot of neighbors that during summer outside, but like I just put my headphones on. Like I don't care. Like I want to. Whatever.
Yeah, well, I know this because I fly my drone a lot. And that's how I just discovered in the pandemic, there was a bunch of women doing yoga on the roof. And I was like, I didn't know this was happening in my city.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It makes sense though. I mean, in New York specifically, we love like the idea of being on a rooftop. So many rooftop parties and people hanging out. Like it's a big thing. It's almost like, you know, we don't have backyards here. You know what I mean? Like not unless you own like a nice brownstone or something. But so.
But
you know,
who knows? Let's be honest.
Russians, basically. Very, very few
Exactly.
people now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's definitely a huge luxury to own a building in New York.
Yeah. Same here.
So before you were a nanny, were you doing something else? Were you traveling for a living, or you just travel just for fun?
No, I travel for fun.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons. Okay, no, I love my job. They say like do look at what you're doing when nobody is watching, and that's roughly what you should be doing. So because I'm an only child, I used to babysit for free in Panama all the time because that was what I wanted. Like I wanted.
Is that
I
where you were
always
born
wanted to
in
be-
Panama?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was born in Panama and I moved here in 2010.
Okay.
So I was always babysitting. So for me, it was kind of like it just came natural. And the more I did it, the more I really started like I'm very into early childhood education. So I just try to bombard the kids with as much information as I can, and like it's just what makes me happy. And on top of that, after a few years of nannying, I realized that I could really take time off in between contracts and travel. So that was just a huge added bonus. So since
Gotcha.
2015, I take between 1 to 3 months off from work, and I just disappear. I'm like, sometimes like in 2016, I was traveling by myself for 6 months, and I didn't even have a phone. Like it was
Wow.
great. And
Yeah,
I was just backpacking. So
That's a dream. I can't take off work like that.
well, that's what I was saying. This is one of my favorite, like, besides really liking what I do, on top of that, like, I have the flexibility to just be like, okay, the contract is up until December. I'm going to go. And a lot, like, the last family I was with, we were working together for 3 years, and, like, they were huge into traveling. So they were like, by all means, they hired some nannies while I was away, and like I came back like a month and a half, 2 months later, and they're like, and I'm back at work. So
Nice.
it's worked out, and I feel very thankful because like I've been able to do it a lot. And the more you travel, it's like everything. The more you do something, the easier it gets.
Right.
So by now, I'm a pro when it comes to traveling in like the cheapest budget you can imagine.
Right.
Like in 2016, I did the Balkans. So I started like I did Slovenia, Croatia, Romania. I was in Serbia. Like I did all of the Balkans,
Okay.
and I spent 600 euros. And that's
Wow.
everything. I take buses. You just need a couple of good books, and you're good to go.
How do you
So,
handle the language barrier there?
I don't know. Like I'm usually in the cities, like in the city center, like or in the main city where I'm, and I always stay in hostels. I love hostels.
Right.
So everybody kind of like speaks English. So like English really gets you by everywhere. Like there's only been a few countries where, and at those times I've been with my ex who spoke 5 languages. So it was kind of like,
Oh, well, that's easy.
so when we were in Georgia, like, yeah, maybe English. No, I think English was common. But like when we were in the border, like he had to speak Russian because English was not getting us anywhere.
Right.
So, but like overall, English is like you can go anywhere.
Pretty universal. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because I've traveled to a lot less places than you, but I've traveled a bit. And most recently, I was living and working in China. And that is not
Nice.
English friendly. Mainland China is not English friendly.
I've heard.
It's not even like, you know, I don't know. People here in America like to, I don't know if it's true or not, say that like in France, everyone hates America and they're going to purposely
true.
speak French to you. And
Yes,
maybe it's
that
just
is so
Paris
true.
specifically
So
because it's a
correct.
tourist town. But in
can back
China,
that up.
it's not like a mean thing. They literally, most people don't speak it.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like American. They think like China is the best language. Like we all think English is the best language. Like, so it's like this weird other country that feels like it's fantastic. So I really had to struggle and figure out how to learn Chinese to like move around.
Did you?
And it's a little bit, yeah. And then when I
wow.
came back, I took more lessons to try to keep it up. But with Chinese specifically, it's very tough to like become fluent if you don't continue, probably with any other language, continue to use it. So now I feel like I know only a few phrases and I've forgotten
Yeah.
a lot of what I had done. And I'm trying to get back into it again, but it is, for me, one of the most difficult languages. Like I grew up in Miami, and so like a lot of my friends speak Spanish and I can understand Spanish, and even if I forget, it's pretty close to English in its origins, you know, like
Yeah.
so I can figure stuff out. And you know, Spanish is simple to me. Like learning Spanish was easy, like we all took it in high school.
Yeah.
But Chinese is like a whole other thing.
It's a different beast. Yeah. And they don't really have Google Translate over there, do they? Like you can.
Well, I had it. Yes, I actually
Okay.
did. So, but unlike where Spanish to English, let's say, you can figure out like the subject and the verb is pretty similarly said. Sometimes it's swapped in Spanish to English. In China, most of the time it's not the same. It's not like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm going to the store. And then you could figure out Spanish would be kind of similar in that sequence. Maybe one or two words are swapped. There, it's just like a whole other like way of talking. Like you wouldn't,
Yeah.
you would be like, I go store. Or
Yeah.
a store I go. Or sometimes it's just really weird. Depends on the phrase. I'm giving a bad example, but like, so my point was on Google Translate, if I said something in English with proper English context, even though Google Translate is doing a pretty good job, sometimes they just be like, what? I don't understand. Because I would tell it to say it to them sometimes. Like, 'cause
I was gonna
working.
ask you that. Yes.
Yeah, so I would say it. But again, I was working on like on a TV show. I was color grading a TV show in China. And so a lot of what I had to say was like video editing jargon. So it's like there aren't direct words in Chinese for stuff like that. So then it got really hard to say certain things. The funniest part though, when I was going over there, the agent who was sending me there said, "Oh, don't worry. Like we know you don't speak Chinese, no big deal. The lady, the executive producer you'll be working with, she speaks fluent English." And I went, "Oh, cool." Turns out when I got there, she's the executive producer, so she's never working with me because she's doing her executive stuff. So I was working with the regular guys who were just like, I speak 0 words of English.
Oh my God.
So it was a bit of a challenge for sure.
How long were you there for?
Quite a few months. I wasn't like a full year, but enough to where I got a little bit better, but enough to where it was like still hard. But like I said, Google Translate was kind of a savior.
Yeah.
I would imagine when you travel, you have a foreign phone of some sorts that works on their network. I did not. So I like didn't have service when I left my place where I was staying. So
Yeah.
I had to like hope I could get on someone's Wi-Fi so that I could do a Google Translate.
Oh my God.
I just think there wasn't time, or I forget why, but I wish I'd found a way to have a service outdoors.
Yeah. Well, in that sense, like I've been using T-Mobile Road Rush. I've been using T-Mobile for about 4 years. And one of the things I like about them is that in the unlimited plan, you always get data wherever you are. So wherever, it's since 2016, wherever I've been, I just take my phone and I don't have to do anything. I just use my phone and it's my phone line and it doesn't cost me anything. It's part of the T-Mobile One plan.
Right.
So I always have internet when I'm abroad. So that's for when you start traveling again, you might want to switch to T-Mobile while you're on the road.
Yeah, I think
it makes a big difference.
I have AT&T, so I think there was an option like that, but it was wildly expensive. So I was like, I can't pay for that. It's ridiculous.
This one, it's not more. It's just like the unlimited plan, and it costs the same, and it doesn't really
Right.
cost anything.
Yeah, they wanted to
I feel
add
like-
a lot, like $80 a month on top for
dear,
a certain amount of data abroad. And I was like, that's
No, you should totally switch to T-Mobile. That sounds like
Yeah.
if this is not an ad, they're not paying me to say this.
Yeah.
It is like literally, I pay. I don't know, but it's your average unlimited plan, and you get unlimited data, bro.
So out of
the
all the
only
places-
downside is that when you're like far away from the city, like T-Mobile is good when you're in the city, but the second you leave like the area a little bit, you're like out. You have no
Yeah.
reception. Like when I go hiking, like God forbid something happens, because I'm just stuck here. Like I cannot call anybody.
Oh, I
So that's
was
a
gonna-
trade-off a little bit.
I was going to ask you if you had any close calls, because I have a crazy story about a close call I had of like, I don't know if I'm going to be like murdered by somebody. Like when I was in China, I went to go to the Great Wall, and it's a whole process that I looked up online of how to get there from, I was in Beijing. So like you have to take like 3 buses and a train and all this crazy stuff to get to the Great Wall. If you didn't know this, the Great Wall isn't one wall, it's multiple walls. So I was going to the one closest to Beijing, but one of the things you have to do to get to your destination, the final thing you have to do is get off the bus at this specific stop, then take one of the local cabs the rest of the way, which is like about a 5-minute drive. But there's, for whatever reason, the bus doesn't go there. It just doesn't. So you have to take a 5-minute, like $2 cab ride. What happened to me was, obviously I'm trying to read Chinese letters, when we go to each stop, right? And I'm like looking, does this squiggle look like this squiggle? You know what I mean? Like looking at the stop outside my window. I didn't think I was at the right stop yet. The squiggles didn't match because I took screenshots from my phone so I could look for that squiggle, you know?
Yeah.
It didn't match. But then some Chinese guy, when the doors opened at the stop, again, the wrong stop, it was a few stops before I had to get off. He steps in the back of the bus and says, he looks around. I'm like the only white guy there. Everyone else is Chinese. And he goes, "Hey, you." And I'm like, I didn't know he was talking to me. I'm ignoring, you know, and hey, you. And he goes, "You white boy." And I'm like,
Oh my God.
yes. And he was like, "Are you going to Muten Yu?" And I was like, yes. He goes, "Come, take cab." And in my head, I'm like, okay, I do have to do this, but I don't think this is the right place. And I'm like, no, I'm good. He goes, "You don't want to go to Muten Yu?" I'm like, no, I do. He goes, "Come, take cab. Plenty of cab." And I was like, okay. So I got off the bus way too early. It was a scam for him to make a ton of money off of me.
Oh my God.
But in the moment, for what it's worth, I'll come back to how much it was. But in the moment, I was like, I got off the bus. Immediately, I knew I screwed up because I read online there's a ton of cabs that line up because it's like a big hub of people having to do this. There was 2.
Yeah.
There was 2 cabs.
Okay.
So there was like this guy and another guy. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, how much to get there? And he was like, oh, like 60 kwai. And I was like, that seems like a lot more than I remember Google saying it would cost. Anyways, paid him the money, got in his cab. That whole ride up, I'm thinking, this is where I die. This is where, because I don't know where we're going. You know what I mean? It's the countryside of mainland China. So I have no idea where we're going. And I'm like, this is where I die. Like, how am I going to kill this man before he kills me? So I'm thinking in the back seat. Then we show up to the right place, to the ticket center to get the ticket to go up the ski lift to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And he actually gets out of the car and he helps me. Like the whole time I'm thinking he's a murderer, right? We get there. He brings me to the ticket counter, shows me which ticket to buy. I buy that ticket. He says, "You're welcome," and leaves. And I was like, I kind of feel like an ass because I thought he was going to kill me. However, he did take me for more money. Like, that's his scam. He's a nice guy, but like, you wrangle people off the bus and then make a ton of cab money off of them.
Yes.
But it turned out to only be like $20.
Okay.
Like $20 US. But it would have been, like I said, like a $2 US dollar cab ride.
You made his day.
But whatever, you know what I mean? Like it was on my company. $20 is nothing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
But
my God.
have you had one of those scary moments?
I would say I have my window open. I'd say I haven't had that many scary moments when I'm abroad. I'd say the biggest one I've had was when I was in Bulgaria. I was staying in a hostel, and I told the people from the hostel, I was like, I want to go to the Black Sea. How do I get to? I think it was called Sunny Beach. And the guy in the front desk, he's like, don't go to Sunny Beach. I was like, why not? He's like, you don't want to go to Sunny Beach. I'm like, well, I want to see the Black Sea, and in my experience, every time people have told me not to go somewhere because XYZ, I've gone to that place and I've loved it. Like, people told me, don't go to Warsaw in Poland, like, blah, blah. And then I got to Warsaw and I had the best time. So I'm like, it's probably going to be fine. So I took a 9-hour bus ride to the Black Sea. Wow. By the time I get there, I noticed two demographics. 18-year-old kids that seem to be on graduation trips, like high school graduation trips, and very creepy old men. There was no one my age going around. And I was like, oh, dear, I'm in for a treat. But I was like, it's probably going to be fine. I love walking. I walk everywhere. So I was like, I always usually grab my hiking backpack and I walk to the hostel. So it was about like an hour walk. So I was like, okay, I was walking to the hostel. By the time I got there, they're like, do you mind? Up until that day, I did share dorm. So I never really cared. It was always fine. So he was like, the front desk was like, we only have like share rooms. So I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I get to the room. There are 3 British guys drunk out of their, like, they're just gone. And they're kids. And then there is this very old, also British guy also in the room. So I was like, okay, whatever. I don't think I'm going to go out tonight. And then the old guy comes to my bed and he starts talking to me, which has never happened to me in a hostel. And I was like, okay. And then eventually he started talking to me about prostitution. And I just grabbed my stuff and I went downstairs. I was like, I need you to get me in a new room. Like, I don't feel comfortable staying in that room.
Yeah.
So anyway, they were like, okay, there's another room. There's a girl and a guy there. And I was like, okay, that sounds better. At least I'm not the only girl in the room. I go to the room, and the second I open the door, the girl's like, oh, my God, I'm so glad you're here. I'm like, oh, dear, no, what's going on? I just nice to meet you. And she was like, yeah, like, I don't know if I can share the details of this story because it's so, nothing physical happened to anybody, but the guy was doing some very nasty stuff in the middle of the night in front of her bed the night before.
Whoa.
And she was like, I don't want to sleep in this room alone, blah, blah. Like, by then I've had it. I'm like, now I get what this guy from the hostel was telling me not to go to Sunny Beach. Like, I should have listened. And, like, again, these are way too many graphic details for me to explain why. But, like, that night I didn't sleep. And the next morning I woke up, I grabbed my hiking backpack, and I took a 12-hour bus ride back because now we were sitting on traffic. I was like, I never saw the Black Sea. I just literally took to I was like, I am out of here. Like, get me out of here like yesterday. I want nothing to do with this place. So when I got back, the guy, I was in the same hostel. The guy from the front desk, he's like, I told you. I'm like, shut up.
Wow.
So I would say that was probably it was so sleazy.
I can't imagine what that's like as a woman to like travel alone like that to a foreign place, staying in a hostel. Like that sounds.
It's usually fine. You meet a lot of interesting characters and you get a lot of ideas from the people that are staying in hostels. I've met all sorts of people. Like I met this kid. He was a genius. He was like 18 at the time. He was writing a book. He was working with a book. So you meet a lot of interesting people in hostels. But I had that experience, and ever since then, I've never stayed in a mixed dorm again. No, I stay in dorms that are only girls.
Sorry, I'll skip that.
No, like it was fine up until that day. I don't want to take the gamble anymore. So I would say that was probably, I think that's probably one of the worst. There are a couple more, but like luckily, nothing really bad has happened. Quite the opposite. Like I find the world to be a lot safer than what the news make us believe.
Interesting.
Because like there's been so many times where I'm like, I remember this time I was in Turkey and I was alone and I was lost. And in Turkey, like there's not a lot of English, and I think I didn't have a phone in that trip. And I walk into a store, and I'm like, it was already getting dark, and I talked to the manager, and I was like, where's this hotel? And he didn't speak English, but he asked one of the kids that worked there, like, can you come? The kid did speak English, like, can you come and like tell her where this is? But he didn't tell her to tell me. He told him to take me. So the kid literally walked me a few blocks all the way to my hotel.
Oh,
just to make
nice.
sure I got there safe. So that's what I'm saying. Like more often than not, in the world is full of people that do mean well. There's just like a few.
Well, you must have a guardian angel.
Yeah.
I have a friend here in New York. His sister, quite a few years ago now, she went traveling alone. She was similar to you. She loved to travel a lot. She went to Turkey and she was murdered there. She never came home. She was out. I guess she went to go do something by herself that one day, and some local guys snatched her up, and that was it.
Oh my God.
So, like I said, you must have. Obviously, you're a very strong person, and some guardian angel looking after you, because that's
what my mom tells me. She's like, you have like, please don't cut. My mom should always tell me, she's like, you have the best guardian angel. Please just don't cut its wing. Like you play with him way too much.
Out of all the places you visited, where is a place you'd like to go ride? Like on your unicycle?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say every big city that is hard to get around. So, for example, Paris is huge. Nobody prepares you for how big Paris is. So I feel like I would like to take my wheel if I ever go back to Paris, just because like it's just so big. But I don't know, because you cannot ride these things everywhere. Like I know there is a community in France that rides wheels, but like in Panama you can't. So I guess I would have to do research to see where I could ride.
A lot of places do have crackdowns. Like Paris, now they've cracked down on the speed limit you can ride on those things.
Oh.
I don't really understand how they're enforcing it, but I know there's some French guys who are in the forums and things who talked about this a little bit and said it's really bad in a lot of European countries right now for some reason. And certain Asian countries have just said they're outlawed. If we catch you on them, you go to jail. So it's very bizarre.
Yes, that's kind of like, you have to be very, very careful in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, you have to, you don't want to, I mean, I don't even want to say it because I don't know if it's offensive, but I know they cane you, so I'm like, I wouldn't want to play with my luck over there. Like, you really have to do some research to see where you can do it, and because that's kind of like part of traveling. I feel like, yes, there are cultural things that might be wrong in some places, but overall, it's part of it. You have to go to a country and play by their rules, whatever they are, whether you agree with them or not.
I didn't have a unicycle when I was in China, but I used to skateboard. I had a longboard, so I would longboard from my hotel where I was living to the office. Seemed to be pretty acceptable. No one ever said anything bad or anything to me like that.
You're also white, though. I feel like that might be.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of things that I can get away with that I don't realize.
Yes.
But it was mainly in China. You know what I mean? Maybe other places, it's pretty safe. Beijing, in general, like you were sort of saying, the world's a bit safer than what people like to let on. Beijing is like the Washington, D.C. of China. So it's a very political town. Obviously, it's the capital. So, and when the locals are talking, they're just talking politics. So it's very weirdly like that. But yeah, I remember I tried to. The weirdest part about traveling, maybe you've seen this too, was so I went to a Walmart in China. That was weird. I think I was trying to look for packing tape or something like that, and then bubble wrap, because basically when I flew with my longboard, I wrapped it in bubble wrap and stuff, and took the trucks off and packaged it so it could just fly internationally on the airplane with me. Made it legit. But when I got there, I cut that stuff off. I couldn't reuse that, so I was trying to find a place where I could get that like bubble wrap and things like that again. So I went there. I went to some other places, but the Walmart was like the weirdest place.
Why?
Just seeing what it looked like inside, it was just like, you know, in some ways perfect. Like it was a Chinese version of like a low class grocery store. You know what I mean? Like it was very like rednecky, but in like a Chinese way. You know, like the different food offerings were bizarre in there. They didn't
What was the
seem
weirdest
like.
thing you see?
Oh man, just like I couldn't put my finger on it, but just when you looked at, so if you go to like a wet market in China, it's like the local. Probably something similar with Panama might have, like a local market where you can
No, but
buy
I saw them
food.
I saw them in Thailand.
Yeah, so like
yeah.
that stuff I'm used to seeing. What kind of stuff you'd see at a wet market or like at the regular grocery store, but there it just seemed like like the weird off-cut part of a chicken that even the wet market's not selling and stuff like that. You're just like, what is this place? And then they would, you know, but then there was like a like packing boxes on an aisle, and then there was clothes, and it was just this. It was hard to put your finger on because it's like there's some Chinese food they sell in there, and like snacks and things that isn't what you'd find. The most welcoming place was like the gas station. Like one night I was like hungry and I wanted a snack, so I went to the gas station across the street from my hotel, and it was like they had Lay's chips. So like they sold like Coke and a bag of chips. You know what I mean? Like that was interesting. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to find, if you had a hankering for American food or something like that, it'd be tough to find. The weirdest thing though was I went to a mall and I went to a Mexican restaurant in Beijing, China, in a mall that's under the subway. I mean, let that sink in.
Yes.
That was disgusting.
Oh dear.
Like you can just imagine like a strip mall, a Chinese strip mall's version of Mexican food in mainland China was very, very weird. Like I can't recall the dishes, but I remember thinking like, you didn't quite nail it. This is not what you think it is. This is
So
not what
trying to.
Platanos. You've messed up. This is not quite it.
I've heard that they put rice. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that somebody had like they ordered a pizza and the pizza had like rice and corn on it.
Whoa. I never ordered pizza.
This is a trouble story I heard once. I was like, oh, that's good to know.
I found a couple of like craft breweries that were in China that were like there, which was very interesting. And so at a craft brewery in America, maybe by you or by me, they're going to serve comfort food of some American comfort food along with the beer they're making.
Yeah.
It was weird in China because I was excited, right? Because I like other cultures. I like being amongst them and their native food. And I was like, oh, I'm excited. Like, what is the comfort food they're going to serve me with beer? They just tried to make an American cheeseburger and it was weird.
Oh dear. What
and
did
I was like, why? Like, there has to be a Chinese equivalent to a cheeseburger, right? Like, there's got to be. You know, like, so that was it was okay. It was just a little off. There was something about it that you were like, I can't tell what it is, but something's weird in here.
Well, if there's something I do nowadays, because American cuisine, I have to say, you will never find a burger anywhere in the world that is as good as the U.S. The U.S. has burgers like down, like it's just like it doesn't matter where you go, you're gonna have a good burger. Mm-hmm. So I try to avoid burgers when I'm abroad just because I'm just so used to like good burgers here that I'm like, it doesn't matter where I'm going. Right. It's gonna be a disappointment.
Well, I was all I was offered. It was like burger and fries at this place. So I was like, when in Rome, I guess I'll try it. And then I was like,
no, thank you.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest thing you ate while you were there?
The weirdest thing? The typical like weird thing that usually an American would try is like a scorpion on a stick. Yeah. But I was open to trying that. But then when I talked to some friends of mine who are Chinese, they were like, you're just a dumb American if you try that because it's not good to us. And I was like, fair. So I'm not going to try that. But I had amazing, like when they're making handmade noodles there, it's to die for. Like, so I had really good food there. Okay. I didn't really get like weird, you know, I didn't get adventurous while I was there. Okay. Probably the weirdest thing I've ever eaten probably would just be like at a Brazilian restaurant here in America, like eating like a chicken heart or something. That's about as far as I've gone.
Yeah, no, body parts are not really my job. But I did try crickets when I was in
Oh, you
Southeast
did?
Asia.
Okay.
Yeah, and they say like it tastes like chips. It does taste like chips.
Mm.
I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if China has the same, but like in Thailand, you see these kind of like carts, and they have like lines of different weird animals that they're like street food. And the one that I was never gonna try it, but I was very curious. Like people do really eat these. There were these cockroaches
Oh,
that were
nope.
like huge, and they were fat. And I was like, are people really eating these? Like I never saw anybody eating them, but it was just like, to me, it was so bizarre to see like just a bunch of cockroaches. Like
Right,
like,
yeah. I'm not
they're-
trying it. Did you try it?
No. No.
Okay.
I had the crickets. I saw the scorpion. I'm like, I'm not having scorpions. Like, I had the crickets, and I call it a day.
A cricket
No.
does seem like the most like approachable insect to me.
Yeah, because
to
there's
eat.
nothing inside. It's just like a little crunchy.
Yeah, there's no stinger. There's no, it's like an ant. Even still, would weird me out a little bit. Like a
Yeah.
large ant or something. There are some Southeast Asian countries where like they make like what's like a just massive amount of ants in a big dish that they've spiced and stuff that almost looks like black mashed potatoes, but of like ants and stuff, and you're just like, how did this become a thing? But I mean, everyone's different. Like if
Yeah.
people were saying that the scorpion thing, I think originated from a certain people group in the mountains in China. I think I have this right. That was seen as like one of the many things they could eat, and they realized that people in the big cities thought it was like weird, but in a cool way. Like they were like, "Oh, I want to try this thing," like kind of a delicacy or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's how they started bringing it to like Beijing and places like that to sell it on the street. And then it became like this normal street thing, and then like a tourist attraction almost, right? Like all the white people were like, "Gotta try scorpion."
No.
Yeah,
That just doesn't sound.
not for me.
It's like, I just imagine when you bite it, like there's like fluffy stuff that is gonna come out, and I'm like, I don't wanna know how that's gonna feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to Germany as well, and that is good food there. There's nothing weird that I encountered, but it's very good food there. And that's a place I'd like to ride, like in the countryside in Germany somewhere. That'd be cool.
Where do you go in Germany?
I was in Salzburg and Munich.
Nice.
So very kind of different places. So like Salzburg is very beautiful and picturesque, and then Munich is like the city, so it's like, it was cool to be in the downtown of Munich. It felt like I was in like Beauty and the Beast or something.
Right.
And then also just like the city center where it just feels like a metropolitan city.
Yes.
So
And
it's
they
cool.
dress so well too. Like I've never felt as underdressed as I did in Munich. Like
Yeah.
it's like a fashion show.
Oh, yeah, I can see that for sure. I was a lot younger, so I wasn't like tuned in to that as I might be now when I go to a place like that. I would love to go to France and ride there. Hopefully, maybe I should have somebody on who's from one of these heavily restricted places to talk about it. But I
Yeah.
don't quite understand the rationale from their government officials as to why they're restricting it. Like in New York, for a while, we did have restrictions on certain things, but I can look at the history and see the rationale. Like for us, it used to be anything motorized, like a bicycle that's like got a motor on it, was illegal. But this was way before electric bikes existed. So what happened, I think, in New York was like quite a few many years ago, like maybe 15, 20 years ago, a kid was killed by a guy who strapped a 2-stroke motor to his bicycle. So the kid's parents lobbied to the government to like make all of that illegal, which understandably so.
Yeah.
And so that law has been on the New York books. So when we invented electric bikes, it was like, well, that's just immediately illegal because there's a motor on it, and it's not a motorcycle. But the joke here is that our mayor, he kept trying to enforce it, but mainly it was affecting minorities, and it was guys who were delivering on these electric bikes. And so the joke is that he realized that his lunch was coming late. So that's why he reversed enforcing it. And now they got rid of that law.
Okay.
So it's everything electric is completely legalized now.
Wow.
But yeah,
Yeah.
nobody here likes our mayor. He's kind of an idiot. You know?
I don't know. To be honest, I am as disconnected from the news as possible. I gave up on them when I was back in Panama, so I don't know. I don't know much about what's going on. Like, obviously now with Trump and everything, like everybody knew what was up. But like now that he's out, like I'm back to like, and I don't need to see the news. It's just too stressful.
Yeah. I'm super tied into
I
EV
don't-
news as well, so that's why that was like on my radar. You know,
Okay.
anything electric, I'm like I said, I'm too tied into it. I'm like reading everything all the time.
Yeah.
I probably need to step back. Stop
Becoming a
consuming so
problem.
much, electric stuff. Yeah. So this has been fun. I think. Is there something you are looking forward to in your town once things open up, as far as like riding, or do you think you'll? Yeah. Is there something?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've gotten a very warm welcoming from the community. So I am looking forward to be able to join the group rides once I have the vaccine and everybody has the vaccine, and it's a bit more, it's a bit safer to meet with
Right.
multiple people. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to, being able to do group rides at some point.
Cool.
And then being able to see how far I can take that with the bike.
Yeah.
See, yeah, do some good trips and explore not just Boston, but like the surrounding areas as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've built a bike route from New York to Canada that is now open. And so like a lot of guys keep joking around. I don't know, maybe they're serious that they'd like to ride from here to there on their EVs. And I'm like, I don't see any charge spots, guys. I don't know how you're going to make this work.
So can you have a different battery for the wheel that you can? No. So
Like
it's
to
just like
swap
whatever you get
it, to
for
swap it.
Yeah.
No, that's something a lot of people have suggested would be cool to see from these companies. It's
Yeah.
like a battery you can swap in and out. But I mean, you would, for me, technically you could kind of do that now, but you just have to carry these bare, semi-unsafe batteries in your backpack until it was time, and they're kind of heavy.
Okay. All right.
So they'd have to create a way for the battery to be like, so if you've ever seen a boosted board, their batteries are basically hot swappable. There's some screws are involved to take it out, I think, but they're set in this plastic thing, so it's relatively safer. Like, I don't know, the batteries in you and our wheels are they're all soldered together and shrink wrapped. It's not anything like it's really basic. So like carrying a shrink wrapped thing of batteries around seems like an awful idea at the way the current state of them are now.
Okay.
So they'd
All
need to
right.
have like a plastic enclosure or something that kept them safe and secure, because like, if
Or get
it's a-
like solar power batteries or something like that.
yeah. Well, like, because the way it works is it's a bunch of like 18650 cells that are soldered together in series. So if one of those solders breaks, it could mean a fire.
Oh.
So it's still pretty volatile if you really consider it. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like you're not. I would love for you to dive in so you don't know just how dangerous these things can be. I think you're having a really good experience so far. I have too. I've never had a fire myself or anything like that. God forbid. But
I'm not gonna be able to post this. I'm gonna freak out my bosses. They're gonna be like, "Why are
No.
you bringing that little fire hazard to our house?"
no, it's not. No, it's only
no, they're cool.
the truth. The truth really is like, there are warning signs if something is awry. There are things you can do to just be extra cautious at home and things like that. But it's pretty rare, but it is still possible because they haven't really devised a way for them to be, like, for example, if you puncture a lithium battery, whether it's your laptop battery or the stuff in your Tesla, that's an instant fire. Like if you took a knife to that and you stabbed it, instant fire.
Okay.
But again, same for your laptop. You know what I mean? Like, so they're,
Yeah. Well, like I was hearing a few of your podcasts before we spoke, and one of the things that I didn't know about that I learned through one of your conversations is the heavy blanket. So is that how it's called? The fire blanket?
oh yeah. So that was, you're listening to Wrong Way. Yeah.
Okay. So that was my take from that one. I was like, okay, I'm getting one of those, and I'm just gonna.
Yeah, just put it
Wherever.
over your wheel at night or
Yeah.
something, just in case. And
Yeah.
then also, like, if it were to catch fire overnight, it would potentially suppress those flames. But also, if you were awake and you saw it, you could make sure to suffocate it. You know, if it was like, air was getting in, just make sure you pat it down around it or whatever. But yeah, there's like a whole deeper conversation about what to do in the event of a lithium ion fire. It's not fun. But it's just good to know, you know, this is just information to know, just because it's like, you know, like with a car, you own a car, you can have a relatively safe experience your entire life driving a car around, but you should understand the dangers of certain aspects of the car. You know, like the same thing, like you wouldn't drive your car if the streets of Boston were flooded up to your waist. Probably a bad idea to drive your car around in that, you know, things like that, you know, those sort of simplistic safety things are important to know.
Yeah. I'll do more research. Like, I realize how naive I've been with the whole subject. I'm like, oh, it's waterproof. It's going to be fine.
No, they're water resistant at best.
This is very informative. Thank you.
Yeah. And you learned there are some wheels that they handle water better than others. That's also one of the new things you can dive into that at another time, but some of the newer wheels from Gotway, they seem to not be trying as hard to protect them from water as they were before. But even before, they weren't like that great. You know, like we learned like the Gotway Nikola, which was my older wheel that I used to use, not on purpose, but just by accident, by the nature of the way they designed the wheel, it is one of the more waterproof wheels. And it is one of the more durable wheels. But it wasn't because they were thinking about that. Now InMotion, they actually consider that. They think about that. They have it's basic, but they have a rating. They have a waterproof rating on their wheels. And if you've ever seen the inside of an InMotion wheel, so their batteries are, I think, shrink wrapped, and then they are in a plastic enclosure that is screwed to the inner shell, and then your outer shell is screwed down on top of that. So they're probably, out of all the companies, they're not perfect by any means. They're still Chinese. They still cut corners from time to time, but they're probably known as like the safest brand.
InMotion is?
Yes. But they
I thought Gotway was. I don't know why.
Oh, no. Gotway is known as the shittiest quality, but the biggest performance.
Okay.
So we buy the Gotways because you're getting that performance, and you clearly probably need to stick with Gotway for a while, unless one of these companies like InMotion or Kingsong or somebody comes out with a powerful enthusiast level wheel. But so far they haven't really. But yeah,
so what's the speed on average on an InMotion?
Well, it depends which one you get. So the V11, which is their suspension wheel.
That's the latest one, right?
Yeah, that was their latest one. That one hits 35 miles an hour at its top speed, but you only get that top speed for the top 20% of your battery. So once you're at 80% battery, it drops down to 31 as your top speed.
Okay.
But then you have that for quite a long time until it starts to, as you get lower and lower, all these companies, they reduce your top speed. That's how they can claim these like wild, like range numbers, is because they're basing off of an average speed of like 20 miles an hour. And then when you get down to certain battery percentages, they knock down on your top speed progressively. So like when you're at 10% battery on any wheel, you're not riding 30 miles an hour. It's not going to Or
going uphill, like going uphill when the battery is dying is just painful.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't advise it.
You might as well be walking.
Yeah, so InMotion has been known as like the quality, like durable brand. Kingsong is like, I think one step removed, pretty good quality, but not quite as good as InMotion, but they have really slick design. Typically, this is like how we kind of have seen it played out. So like InMotion, quality, durability. Kingsong, quality, some durability, but mainly hot design. Then Gotway is just quality, durability, performance off the charts. And that's been the lane they've been in. And so, on the podcast, The Wrong Way, they're in a lot of hot water right now because it's a bit unwarranted. But like I said, their quality's not been great, but recently in the last week or two, there was a lot of fires in a small window, right? So typically over the course of a year, we'll hear of a fire here and there, someone's wheel burning up or whatever. But there was a lot in a small window, so a lot of people freaked out, like in customers in the community, which made Gotway freak out, and they were like, so they're, can be really good. So they're going to try to increase their quality. So we'll see what happens. A lot of us are skeptical that it will help, but it would only apply to their newer wheels that they would up the quality. But we'll see what happens.
Okay, all right. I guess I'll wait until they fix that issue in order to buy another one, because I do like that's my favorite part of the wheel. Like, I can just go.
I think if they can fix the RS, that would be a good upgrade for you if you can't locate an MSP or something. Because like I said, the RS is the next step after the MSP. It's basically the same type of wheel. But the problem they're having there is water getting into the bearing and ruining the bearing pretty quickly. And the other thing is, for design purposes, on like the right or left side of the RS, they put a fancy logo that says RS, but it's a giant hole into the inside of the wheel.
Oh, okay.
And so there were guys here in New York. We know a guy who was riding at 45 miles an hour, and water got in and shorted the board while he was riding and cut out at 45.
No. Oh my God, is he okay?
Yeah, he's okay. I'm not saying it didn't hurt. It wasn't painful for a few weeks, but like that's
fast for a cutout.
So those are pretty crazy things they need to figure out.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think the fastest I've ever gone on any unicycle is 50. On my current wheel, I did that on the Monster Pro from Gotway. But that's me just like going, well, I tapped 50. But on the Veteran Sherman, it's probably one of the most well-built, safest wheels that's ever been created. But it's a beast of a wheel. I mean, it weighs 77 pounds. 77 pounds. 77. Yeah, it's close to 80. We'll call it rounded up, 80-pound wheel. But it is wildly comfortable, good. If you're like somebody who really needs that super, super high speed, like I can cruise at 45 for like 30 miles straight.
Oh, beautiful. That's a lot.
Yeah, but the trade-off is it's also very durable. There's a roll bar connected to it. The trade-off is it's incredibly heavy. So if you do live in a walk, like for me, it's barely manageable to bring it up, a flight and a half to my home. I don't know what I would do. I couldn't have it, I think, if I lived higher.
I don't think I could go for that one because, again, it's the same. Like, I carry mine as a kettlebell.
Yeah.
That's how you say it.
Yeah.
And by the time I get to my apartment, it's kind of like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
I'm, like, sweating. And
yeah, because you want this, the whole point is to be
pounds.
portable. Yeah. That's manageable.
I don't think I could do 80 pounds in a four-stair walk-up.
I would pay attention to what goes on with the RS. That is a really good wheel.
Do you know how much that weighs? I can look it up. It's fine.
I want to guess. I don't know exactly, but I want to guess it's around like 55, 60 pounds.
Okay, that's still like, yeah.
It is more, but like I said, that trade-off is actually well worth it for a wheel like that. Whether it's the MSP or the RS, it's like you're getting a lot more. Like I said, it'll stay grounded for you when you hit unexpected bumps, things like that. And the reason why, though, it's heavier is because it has a massive battery. And that's important if you want long range and high speed. Think of the battery like your gas tank. So when you're trying to go high speed, it has a massive power draw. So you need to have an overhead, an abundance of battery for it to pull from. So, for example, when you're hitting 40-something miles an hour on an RS, if you were to be able to look at your voltage, you would see it's probably sucking down to like 60% of your battery in the moment that you're at that speed. When you slow back down, it goes back up again, but it's like there needs to be enough for it to pull from. So battery is a big part of all of that.
Okay, all right. Noted. I'll keep all of that in mind for whenever I decide to go for an upgrade.
But you got to find something that fits your lifestyle, You don't want to be like, it's just too much and never want to ride,
Yeah, I mean, that part of just being safer will make a difference just because I ride it so much and like the streets in Boston are not good. Like there's so many holes everywhere.
And there's probably people around you whenever you're comfortable seeing other humans that would let you probably ride theirs and test ride an MSP or an RS or whatever, so you can get an understanding of what those wheels feel like to ride, and you could lift it up too and see how heavy it feels.
Yeah, no, that's true. In a couple of months, hopefully.
Yeah, right?
I'll be able to get out of my cave and go socialize a bit more.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about a lot of stuff. This has been very fun to kind of get to know you and like how you came across this crazy world of electric unicycles.
Thank you so much for inviting me and having me over. This is my first podcast ever, so thank you very much. It was a very fun and informative conversation, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's very like I said, I'm just super interested in seeing who it's just a very unique experience to ride these beautiful things around town.
Yes. Floating through the city.
Yeah, totally. Floating.
Yeah.
Not to steal the line from the One Wheel crew. That's their whole thing.
That's the what?
Their whole thing. The One Wheel people, they're like, oh, they call it the float life. That's their like mantra.
I saw the hashtag and I was like, oh, I'll use it too. Mm-hmm. It's in the unicycle.
Yeah. Well, I'll sign off here with you, and maybe we'll have you back on again.
Sounds good. Very nice talking to you. Thank you for having me again.
Once again, thank you so much for watching, guys. We appreciate you making it to the end. Maybe you skipped through, maybe you didn't. Either way, appreciate you. Please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel, or if you're listening on an audio platform, please consider following this podcast. And if you really like it, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review if you can figure it out. I know some platforms are kind of weird about it, how to get there to leave the review, but it would mean so much to me if you could leave a review on this podcast, as it will empower us to be higher ranked and continue to make more and more and more of these. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.